Good afternoon. You are now listening to KTAL LP 101.5 FM in Las Cruces. This hour is brought to you by the Lab, Learning Action Buffet, and the Dulcinea Community College CMT Club. You're rocking with the Learning Action Buffet. What's up, Annie?
Thank you, DJ Kels.
Yeah.
So for the next few minutes, I'll be exploring the topics of life and learning from the perspective of a mentor here in our community. Our guest today is Dulcinea Lara. Thank you for being on the show today. How are you?
It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So just to jump straight into it, tell us a bit about yourself and where you're from.
Sure. I'm from this area. I was raised in Berrino, New Mexico, on a farm. And I eventually left New Mexico for college and then came back. So I'm here at New Mexico State University now.
Beautiful. You came back. Where did you go to school, if I can?
Yeah. So I left. I went to school in Michigan.
Okay. Very far away.
Very far away. I wanted to kind of explore a little bit more, a different place. And that was very different. I loved it. And that's kind of where I found my passion in terms of ethnic studies courses and sort of thinking about social justice and those kinds of things. So essentially what I teach now in my college classes here at NMSU. But it took going all the way to Michigan to kind of find that spark.
Yeah. So, and that is what you do currently. And what other kind of work do you do over there at the university?
So I'm a professor in the Criminal Justice Department, and we're very excited to be rolling out a Borderlands and Ethnic Studies program. We're currently offering a graduate certificate, so we're working with some teachers in Las Cruces public schools to think about how ethnic studies can be implemented into the curriculum here in Las Cruces for all students.
Awesome, and that kind of ties into your very active in advocacy and surrounding inclusive education. Can you tell our listeners a bit about the recent Yazzie and Martinez case and how that is now affecting education in New Mexico?
Yes, thank you.
I know that's a broad question.
Thank you for asking. So ethnic studies is interdisciplinary, which means we sort of look at all different facets of communities, from the criminal justice system to education to environmental issues. And so we're really excited about the recent settling of the Yazzie Martinez class action lawsuit at the state level, which basically was many families and constituents coming together to say to the state of New Mexico, you are not living up to the constitutional promise to educate New Mexican youth in a culturally relevant way that looks at multiliteracy, multilingual approaches. And so it's really exciting because now schools are mandated to incorporate a more culturally responsible pedagogy into their curriculum, and that could make a big impact.
So that is in our New Mexico state constitution?
Yes.
And so it's now being more, I guess, enforced?
So the lawsuit settlement itself clearly states what needs to happen, but now it's a lot of work here on out, and it's going to take a lot of people coming together to figure out how do we create a culturally relevant education? How do we implement that? How do we offer that? Equity councils have been developed in school districts to sort of figure out the logistics, the nuts and bolts of implementation.
Interesting. And how will this case tie into NMSU and Borderlands and Ethnic Studies program?
Yeah, so I'm really excited to work with incredible colleagues and stakeholders in the community who have encouraged Las Cruces public schools to implement ethnic studies, which isn't unique. They're doing this in a lot of school districts around the country. But when that happened in 2017, that LCPS said, yes, we'd like to do this, they partnered with NMSU. And so we've been sort of co-developing a plan for implementation, which is why I'm working
really
with current educators at the middle school and high school levels to think about what would this look like in an exciting way. And so we're working on that together.
Well, that's beautiful because the places that needs that, it's definitely Las Cruces, right? It's 70% of students are from a minority background, right? Something like that. So that's very exciting because I think that was definitely lacking when I was in school. Now that I've gone back and thought about it. So how do you see the future of inclusive education here in New Mexico? And how could New Mexico craft their policies, since you're talking about like equity councils and things like that? Where do you see the future?
Yeah, that's great. And I would just echo your sentiments that when I was in high school here, I had incredible teachers and I loved my educational upbringing. I'm a proud product of the Gadsden School District, but we didn't have classes that reflected, I would say, our experiences. Yeah. And so I always tell people, I went to Michigan and then I found out about New Mexico, right? That's when I started learning about just accurate history, right? And so I think that to the work that I do here is really personal in that I know the benefits and effects of people sort of knowing a more accurate history and learning about, this being original Mescalero Apache land and learning about, the way that the border was constructed and kind of thinking about those relationships. So I think the future, if we can do this, which I think we can, and we're working towards it, it can be one that reflects in healthier communities.
That's really, that's a really broad thing to think about, but yeah, it's bringing people together through our history. And so, okay. And why do you find these, you said that this was a very personal story for you. Why do you find these issues so important? As you were a product of this valley, so of course it's personal, but
yeah. I think some people find this to be like a controversial topic. And for me, I teach about race, I teach about power. I was born and raised in a community where, we're sitting on Apache land, and that's where the U.S.-Mexican War was fought. And now I'm learning more about African-American presence in this region. For example, I grew up next to Vado, New Mexico, which was one of the communities originally settled by African-Americans.
And so, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's a really incredible history, and I feel like we're at the crossroads of these convergences of human stories, and so I get really excited about it personally because I feel like knowing the background and the history of a place enhances our ability to relate to each other as people. Otherwise, we're sort of ill-equipped and we lack language and we lack context for which to relate to each other. And then it can become very competitive and very, we live in a very tough time that's based on profit. And I feel like ethnic studies wants to change that framework to thinking about humans and relatability. And I think we need to make a decision as people. Do we want to continue living in a society that's driven by competition and hierarchy and judgment, or do we want to relate to people as fully human so that we can create healthier societies? And so I think the first part is really unpacking that complicated history that is used as a tool of division to instead be a tool of reconciliation.
Oh, wow. That's very, very beautiful and very powerful. And I totally agree with you because we have to look back to go forward, right? So I want to end. Do you have anything more to say to our listeners? What do you have going on in the future? Or
Oh, just really quickly, please check out the website for Borderlands and Ethnic Studies at NMSU so you can see what we're up to with building that program. And coming in August to the University Art Gallery, my friends and I are working together to collaborate on a museum exhibition that's interactive, bilingual, and focused on covering various aspects of social justice that should be really fun coming in August. So please check that out.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Dulcinea. And I also want to thank Rais out there. And so thank you so much for sharing your very important work and all the things that you are doing. And it's really wonderful to hear from a a mentor here in our community. So thank you again, and I'm going to turn the show back over to DJ Kels for some more music.
Thank you all.